Good afternoon, everyone. What a crazy morning we have had. It is the 22nd of September 2021. Here in Melbourne, we had a massive earthquake. I don't know about you, I am still a little bit shaken by the whole thing. It was wild, it was crazy. My kids are still shook up about the whole thing. Hopefully, everyone out there is safe and okay, and I really hope that you all get through it well. A little bit different as well today. It is my time right now, about 1 o'clock. So I have had to quickly pre-record this. Unfortunately, I always commit to doing this with you every week. As you can see, you may wonder I'm dressed rather sharply for during lockdown. I currently have, I'm testifying in a hearing at the moment, and we're just on a lunch break, and I need to be back on before 2:30, and I'll go all afternoon. So unfortunately, I cannot be here live with you today. However, the boys are excited. I know that they'll run through great. I'm still going to take you through section 1, the information section, and then I'll hand over and they will answer all of your questions live as always. So that's over the formalities. As I said, wherever you are, hopefully you were safe from that earthquake, but the show must go on. So what are we going to do? What are we going to get into? Well, there's a lot to go through, but as always, before I start, I want to ask a question to all of you. What is more important? Is it information or knowledge? So those of you that have attended a lot will know the answer to this. I'm asking any newcomers, those of you perhaps who've got power out or whatever and you're joining us for the first time, welcome. Is it information or knowledge? All right, lock in your answers. It is knowledge. So why do I say knowledge? Well, information in itself is just organised data about something. Knowledge, on the other hand, is an understanding through experience and or education. So it is knowledge that actually will achieve what you want to do, because there is a ton of information, but very little knowledge about those topics. So, I've experienced this myself. I'm sure all of you would have a similar story. I probably going back about 12, 13 years ago, was involved in a retail premises that had a number of restaurants operating in there, and they worked on the rental payments were a combination of what we call the base rent, which was fixed, and a percentage of the turnover. Anyone who knows anything sort of about retail will know as much as you can, you want to fix and get regular income. So we'd have rent reviews, and hopefully that base rent would get up to a level that you weren't relying on turnover. So, if things like coronavirus occurred, you'd be protected as a landlord, you'd be getting a fixed rent. Now, when it came to the market review, I did what I thought made perfect sense. I went and got one of the best valuers around to do an analysis on it and determine what the market rent should have been. And what he did, he told me the previous offer I'd given him of a new market rent, he said that was terrible, please take it back and then submit my new one once I've done it. That sounded great. I thought, fantastic, this guy's the best, he knows what he's doing. But I didn't actually know why he was telling me to do that. So what did I do? I pulled back that offer, I waited for his valuation, everyone got a bit busy, wasn't really paying attention, got his valuation, submitted it. Unbeknownst to me, without understanding why he'd said that, what I'd done is I'd let the time pass and I'd missed the date in order to give them a new valuation of the base rent. So effectively, for the next 5 years, it was fixed at that same base rent. That was a terrible mistake by me. And it all came down to the fact that I didn't actually understand what I was being told. I didn't have that knowledge, and I just went ahead and I made a huge mistake. So don't be like me as I was 15 years ago. Today I'm a very different person. I understand it's all about knowing what that information means and how you apply it to yourself. And that's what today's session is all about. It's what we call actionable knowledge. So, we are going to throw a ton of information at you. Every week I send you out a ton of information in our newsletter that I know everyone enjoys. And really what we want to help you do is how to break down that information and turn it into knowledge so that you can apply that to your own personal circumstances. Really important concept, and is the foundation of success in anywhere that you are in your home journey. So, who's this for? Well, it is for everyone on the call today. It doesn't matter whether you are just looking to rent your first property for the first time ever, looking to buy your first home, your next home, or even those of you that may be seasoned investors, you will all get value out of today's session. How's it going to run? We will go for about 40 minutes. I'm about to get into what I call section 1, the information section. I'm going to run through a ton of information about what's been occurring over the last 7 days this week. Then we'll move into section 2, where the guys will host that for you live and answer all of your questions about that information, or just any general questions that you have to try and break down that information and turn it into knowledge for you and everyone on the line. So I really encourage you, get involved, get your questions in. You can start putting in the Q&A now, and the guys will jump on it, and I know that you'll get a ton of value out of it. So let's move forward. Warren Buffett, what does he say? He says it in 9 words. Risk comes from not knowing what you're doing. That is having information, but not knowing what it is and why it affects you and what it means for you. Just like I did 12 years ago, that's where the risk came, because I didn't know what I was doing. All right, so what have we seen happening this week? A lot of things have been going on, but these are my top favourite themes, and we'll focus on these in the section 2. 2 million bucks. You know, remember the concept of being a millionaire? Well, now there is a ton of cities around the country where 2 million bucks only buys you the average house, not even a great house. I mean, that is unbelievable. So we'll run through that and what it means for you and where we're seeing that. You know, low interest rates, we've talked about it for a long time. Lots of demands. So we're starting to see the volume of home sales hit a 17-year high. What does that actually mean? You know, it is just a number. Does it mean something for you, or does it not mean anything? Housing market too hot for renovators. All of a sudden, building costs are going up, prices are going up. Are the people that flip houses, you know, do a quick IKEA renovation actually able to make money anymore? CBD vacancy rates, obviously Sydney and Melbourne, inner city areas, are starting to take a little bit more of a bite. Things had started to look good, but we're starting to see a little bit of those vacancies push out from these extended lockdowns. That is changing. But that's what we've seen historically. And then lastly, you know, we talked about that single strategy just before about people trying to flip houses. How can you prepare yourself to get the price growth? So whether you already own a home, whether you're looking to buy a home, or you're not even sure what you want to do, how can you set yourself up, and what should you be looking for to prepare yourself to make sure that you can leverage all that growth that's been occurring? All right. First statistic, historical auction results. What did we see last Saturday? Well, nationally, just under 75% clearance rates, pretty strong result. And in fact, but for Melbourne, you can see every other capital city there was over 80%. So those of you that have been listening for a long time will know the issue we currently have with Melbourne. If you're a first-time listener, I'll run through it with you now. So basically the way these statistics work is that when people cancel an auction, that counts effectively as a nil result. If you reschedule an auction, then it gets removed from those figures. So what we've been seeing over the last 6 weeks here in Melbourne is obviously all the vendors that had auctions booked that form part of these statistics, because there's been no inspections, no auctions, no ability to effectively sell. They've been cancelling all of their auctions and waiting until we open up again. Obviously, good news that just occurred. Last weekend was the first weekend we're allowed to do private inspections. So inspectors slowly see over these coming weeks, vendors start to get the properties listed again, and these auction results will start to get back to those high levels we had before lockdown number 5 and 6. And probably we're going to start seeing the national result above that 80% mark, as we were seeing for a long time this year. There's the detail. I've gone through it all. As I said, it's Melbourne holding us back a little bit, but expect that to change. All right, now forward-looking. Those of you that know what this is, I'll quickly run through it for those of you that haven't seen it before. Realestate.com, the largest real estate sales and rental portal here in Australia. They produce an index which is a forward-looking index. Effectively, what they do is they monitor and analyse all of the traffic that they're seeing on their website to determine whether people are just window shoppers or they're actually taking certain actions that may indicate that they're a serious buyer. So typically what we see is that the activity that we're seeing today on their website tends to translate into sales over the next 90 to 180 days, so 3 to 6 months. As people are looking, they find the right house and then they buy. So this is really good to give an indication as to what to expect coming forward. Now things change, lockdowns make things move around. But obviously this is good to get a bit of a feel, because the auction results is what's happened in the past and things can change quickly from there. This gives you a guide as to what's going forward. So, not unsurprisingly, the national index here, you can see those lines both kicked up very, very steeply. I think it was just under 3% that they went up in the last week. Why? Well, it was all the Melbourne story. I mean, look at that huge increase we saw. That was almost 7.5% increase just in Melbourne alone. Why? Private inspections were allowed. So people said, it is now worth me spending my time looking because I can actually go out and look. So for everyone that's been spruiking that people just buy houses sight unseen, we know it's not true. That's what we've seen in the results. That's why vendors have been pulling their properties from auction over the last 6-8 weeks. And that is why you see that big spike there. So, I think we're really setting ourselves up for, whilst it's a late start to spring selling season, definitely going to go strong all the way through to Christmas time. And I think, we're in for a very, very solid ride, both nationally, but particularly here in Melbourne as we catch up to where everyone else is. Okay, jumping ahead, rental, exactly the same concept of the index. This here is all of their rental listings. Perhaps not as good an indication, as obviously it's a much lower barrier to entry for people looking to rent. However, it does still give you a good idea as to what's going on and what you can expect. So if we have a look at the national index, again, it increased slightly. Why? Melbourne story again, as you can see, not quite as pronounced as sales, albeit because perhaps people were still renting properties just from looking at photos and having a virtual tour online, as the barrier, as I said, to entry was much lower. And as you know, if you signed up for 6 months, it's not that big a commitment if you find out you don't like it. But good to see that's going there. I think, as always, we're not going to see that market really start to bounce back in the capital cities of Sydney and Melbourne until these borders start to open, both internally within the country as well as international borders, as we know that market is very much one of the biggest demands is driven by international migration, students, and of course all of the events that occur, particularly in Melbourne, the event capital of Australia, that drive a lot of that demand for rental properties in our inner city markets. All right, that's the end of section 1, the information section. Before I leave you with the guys, if you didn't catch before, my name is James Maitland. I'm the General Manager here at Salvo. I've been doing this for more than 20 years and I've helped create more than 11,500 homes for people just like you on the line today. It's what I love doing. It's what I'm all about. And the guys here as well that are going to be running through with you. On the panel, you've got Greg Arbeck, Jack Gian and Lucas Karras. These guys have been doing it forever as well, and they're very much looking forward to it. I believe Greg is going to lead the charge today. I know he's done it once before when I was in transit another time. So jump in, put all your questions in. I know these guys are going to deliver you a ton of value, and I look forward to seeing you guys again next week. I will be back live taking next week's session, of course, and I will come back to you just to wrap up today's session. Those of you that aren't sure, it's really, really easy to do this. Ask your questions, either raise your hand or put it in the Q&A, and the guys will get going. So thank you. Greg, Jack, Lucas, over to you guys.
Well, there you go. What a fantastic introduction. Thanks, James. Well, as we've always said to you, come rail, hail, shine, or courts, whatever it is, we're here. Okay, so we're here to answer your questions. We're here to try and make this exciting. This morning we were shaken up by a massive earthquake. At first I thought I was having a mental episode, and then turned out it wasn't. It was actually a real thing. So everybody said, it's okay, Greg, you don't need to take Valium. It wasn't an episode. It was the whole of Victoria. Now, some exciting stuff, as James mentioned. We back. Okay, so we can do private inspections. People are probably saying, what are the rules? Is there anybody here that can just give us now, what does that mean to everybody?
Yes, Greg. And yeah, I think we are all very excited as we're still shaking this morning. Yeah, finally we'll be able to holding the one-on-one private inspection since last Saturday. This is thanks for the premium. Last week and on Thursday, and announced the private inspection is allowed in real estate. Most important, I think there is a clarification because the Premier said and the private inspection is allowed for unoccupied property. What means unoccupied property? Now, they clarifying the private inspection is allowed for unoccupied property, including those property where the vendor simply needs just to leave when the inspection hold on. So this is very, very, it is good.
That's a very good thing, because I think we were worried about that this had to be a vacant property, but that's clarifying that is a very good thing. Thanks, Jack.
Yes, I believe because after this clarification, I think we, as a real estate agent, and we were very confident, as well as the vendor, they also very confident to put the property back onto the market. So from the experience, I think we say from the last the lockdown, the 5th of lockdown in Melbourne, just at the end of the 5th of the Melbourne's lockdown end, and our listing surged by 150% just in a week. So I believe in this week or even next week, we will have seen the same situation. We will have a pretty busy weekend. So everybody needs to prepare.
Well, that's very exciting. Thanks for that, Jack. I just also noticed, we've gone through lockdown August, we're in September, and looking at what's been happening, and I see CoreLogic to put out another research paper, and I think you and I were talking about it, Jack. Can you just highlight, what is actually happening? Has things gone backwards? What's going on? If you could just give us some updates on what does this mean? What does this mean, the data?
Yes, Greg. So I've got some figures from the CoreLogic just in regards to the sales volume in Australia and also in the New South Wales and Victoria. So we've been very surprised, even we had lockdown in Melbourne and also in Sydney before, but in the past years to 30th of August, which is end of the last month, the residential property sales has jumped 42%. This is a huge, which means about 600,000 house and units has been sold in a year. This is the highest number of sales in the last 17 years since 2004.
So what you're actually saying, that's the highest volume as well. So
Yes.
that's more. Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
So for example, let's say in New South Wales, the property sales jumped 39%. So it's about nearly 200,000 of home has been sold in a year. And numbers of the property has been sold in Victoria here is also jumped 34%. It's about nearly 130,000 residential property has been sold in a year, which is a very, very big number.
Awesome. Okay, and then just another thing we're just talking about there. Why, Jack? What's happening? Why is there all this turnover? What's going on?
Very simple. First of all, is we don't have many listing. So it's also the historic low interest rate created the huge demand for property buyers, which definitely will push our price up and also will push the sales volume, and the lots of the property has been changed the hand. So I think that's the main reason to driving the numbers just to keep going up.
Yeah, awesome. Now there's another thing I noticed as well. We've been talking about it over every week about the price gap between apartments and houses and stuff like that. And I think you and I were talking, Lucas, you said you've got some information on what's going on there as well. What's happening, mate?
Yeah, look, Greg, like we've mentioned in the past few weeks, the prices for homes have been increasing at a crazy rate. So it only makes sense that as people can't afford to buy houses, they turn, of course, into apartments as they appear to be a lot more cheaper. So such is the demand now that we've seen the gap is bridging the gap. So it's a smaller gap than what it used to be. Mm-hmm. Just to give you some sort of figures, a study shows that households are spending 11.3 times the gross annual household income to buy a house, compared to 7.7% when they buy an apartment. Also, currently, we're seeing that most of the buyers are investors, and they sort of often skew towards apartments as well. And our premier announced the path out of the lockdown, and we know that international borders are set to open soon. International students are coming back as well, and all that will have a positive effect on the rental income, which then will attract even more investors in and around the city for apartments.
Cool. I think also, just looking at some of the stats that I was looking at this morning, that we can see the affordability of houses is insane. So you've even got some suburbs where, as James was saying, a $2 million is getting you almost nothing. So, and is like places like Albert Park, Sorrento, places that traditionally wouldn't be that, you actually paying a huge amount of money as an entry level. And I think, as you were saying there, Lucas, that should, as people move towards apartments, that should help, in theory, push pricing on apartments, give them good value and growth.
Of course, yes.
Okay, cool. Now, I just see someone's put a question in here that when James was talking about flipping, I know we talked, what is flipping? Well, it's not going into the swimming pool and flipping. we had a discussion about it a while back. Flipping in its time is actually can be very good in a slower market. So I'm just letting Johnny, thanks, John. So yeah, flipping really is buying a property at good value, turning it around, adding value to it, renovating it. And in a market that's not as hot as we're in at the moment, that can be a very good thing because you're adding value and then able to sell it at a higher sort of pricing. In the current market, that's not really happening because the market is just booming without you having to flip. So there's not really that benefit in terms of doing that. The other factor is that we've seen supplies of building supplies, tradies, all the stuff, their pricing has increased substantially. So flipping at the moment is not a really good thing. But I think, Lucas, you were saying if you're an investor and there's other opportunities, what can you do? I mean, if flipping's not happening, that's not happening, what are the other options that you can prepare to try and see what you can do?
Look, as James sort of mentioned earlier as well, and we have talked about in previous weeks, right now we have low supply, but there's a huge demand. So now more than ever, it's even more trickier for investors to find the right property. So I think when you're looking for property, this is some of the things you got to look out for. I love giving tips. Yeah. So I'll mention a few things that you really, need to consider and look into.
Our resident tipster, Lucas Karras, take it away.
Thank you. Look, first of all, when you're looking to buy an investment property, make sure to find a popular location. Location remains a number one, I believe, on the list. Try to look to find a property in an area that there's a lot of jobs. An area that has a healthy rate of population growth, because as the population grows, values grow as well. Buying an area that has current and future infrastructure in place, not infrastructure that's going to happen in 5 years, because sometimes it takes decades for that thing to happen. So make sure there's current infrastructure in place, not just long term. Make sure you're close to transport. Another good thing is make sure you're close to schools, entertainment, as well as cafes, restaurants, and parks. So, you've got to make sure you sort of tick a lot of those boxes.
This sounds very much like the Golden Triangle where Salvo developed everything.
Exactly. Look, and it's very important, because even if you find all of those things, it's not enough. You got to make sure that the balance is sustained. And what do I mean with that? For an example, if you go to places where there's volatile mining market, or for an example, the Olympics in Brisbane, those things come. Once they finish, everybody moves on. So you got to find a place that will sustain all those things, and not just temporarily. You know, there has to be good long-term demand to drive capital growth. And like I said before, do not fall for promises that this is an area that will eventually will become popular, or the potential of infrastructure, you know, is huge. But as we know, that could take decades. The perfect balance investors should be looking for is short-term income of rental and long-term price of capital growth. So that's what you got to look for. You know, the rental income is what keeps you sustained if there are periods of low or no capital growth. You must invest in an area that is livable as well as desirable. Yeah. And before I go, Gregory, a very important fact that we discovered, last year's retirement income review demonstrated that security in retirement doesn't come from your super balance, but from the equity in your home. So this is very, very important.
And I think as you were talking about earlier, it's, again, you're talking about investors. Definitely in this current market, you know, in your opinion, I think apartments have got to be something that will start getting some decent growth out of them. I think, you know, that's my view. I don't know if you echo that.
Look, 100%. We've seen how the price is going up. We see now, you know, first week we're doing the opens for rentals and the opens for sales, and look at the increase we had in demand. So at the end of the day, it proves that as soon as the city opens up, as soon as we're allowed to do things, the people are just waiting to take advantage of that.
Yep. Now, the other thing I just noticed there, I just sort of saw a question there. And I think, Jack, you had some information on that. Was someone asked, okay, we've talked about the numbers of properties. They talked about what is the turnover? What was the sort of the turnover percentages or whatever it is in terms of properties being moved?
Yes, the turnover it sounds like the new words, and we haven't mentioned that yet, but the turnover is very, very important, which means the number of the homes sold as a percentage of the total number of the residential property across the country. So for example, which means like how many property has been sold, changed in hand as a percentage of the total property we have. Mm-hmm. And this is also, and to, let's say they measure the market. If the market is hot, the turnover rate will be a little bit higher. So as I mentioned before, so the sales volumes, we just reached the highest number in the last 17 years. You reflected this one. So the turnover also has increased a lot. For example, let's have some of the figures here. In Sydney, New South Wales, the turnover rate rose to 5.8%. And in Victoria, the turnover number is 4.6%. Overall, the country, the turnover is 5.6%, which is the highest rate in the last 12 years as well.
Oh, well, that's very, very interesting. So I'm pretty excited about today. I think that we had a bit of a shake up this morning. Hopefully that shakes away Corona, and Rona is a part of you know, we can move forward. So everything's shaking. It's looking exciting. I'm excited, stuff like that. And I think we've covered quite a lot, and we try and make these things short and sweet. So I'm going to just hand over back to James to finish us off. And I hope you guys have enjoyed what we've been able to put forward to you, and it's been informative. And thank you so far. And James, if you can give us the closing, that'll be awesome.
What a fantastic job. There was a ton of value shared there, and I'm sure you all really, really enjoyed that. So thanks, guys, for holding the fort down in my absence. So where to next? I know for a lot of you, you will probably just get on with your daily life. Nothing will change. And for some of you, that's okay. But 2021 is almost over. And have you actually achieved what you had hoped to do at the start of the year? You know, have you bought your first home? Have you got your next home? You know, have you got that investment property really, really firing up and cranking? You know, whatever it is, have you achieved that? And for most of you, the answer will be no. Now, that's okay, because we can help. But for most of you, you're going to do nothing about that. And what I just want to say is that if you don't make a change, don't expect to get a different result. So what I really, really hope that all of you out there consider doing is take on board what we've discussed today, think about what the guys shared with you, the knowledge that they unlocked, and take all of that thought and process and teachings and so forth and go out there and do it yourself. However, what I really, really, really want all of you to do is to take the alternative path and do it with us. Let us help you through that journey. Now, it doesn't matter where you are or what level of experience you've got or where you are in terms of that home buying process and journey. We can help you. As I've said, we've got a ton of different businesses and we're all about helping you create a home. So I guarantee you, we can help you fast track that journey if you decide to let us partner with you and help you down that path. So who's this for? Well, it's not going to be for everyone, but my process and our whole process here, we call it the actionable knowledge process. And it's a very, very simple 3-part framework about finding the right property, financing that property, and then managing that asset through its entire life period. So who's this going to work for? Well, it won't be for everyone. Unfortunately, that's just reality. But if you're on today's call, you got value out of today, then it is for you. We're looking for people that are prepared to actually take action, learn what's going on, understand this concept of being able to turn that information into knowledge. And ultimately, you've got to be prepared to actually do the hard work and roll up your sleeves. Now, by hard work, it's not actually that hard because we're going to lay out a framework that allows you to work through it step by step and allows you to keep on track. But, you've got to be prepared to put in the time and effort. So how do we do that? Well, I've thought long and hard, and there is a ton of different things that we could be doing. But for most of you on today's call, you probably don't know a lot about us. Perhaps you're unsure, are we just trying to sell you something? So what I've done is I've made it really, really simple. I've come up with the smallest possible commitment I can ask from you and still be able to deliver you value. So what I'm proposing is I've set aside time in everyone's diaries over the next 5 days to have a series of meetings with yourselves. We're talking about a 15 to 20 minute time commitment from you. It'll be a one-on-one meeting with one of us where really it's just a meeting to get to know you, get a bit of an understanding where you are on that process. Are you just looking to move out of mum and dad's home for the first time? Are you a seasoned investor? Are you a first home buyer? Are you looking for that next home? Whatever it is, so we can understand how best we can work with you and help you move forward on those goals. So I guarantee if you just give us just 15 minutes, we will be able to give you some actionable takeaways from there that you can either go and implement yourself or continue to work with us and help us get you down that journey and get to that goal faster. So if that sounds like you, jump on and book one of those now. How do you do it? Really, really simple. There's 3 ways you can do it. Jump into the chat if you're live with us on Zoom and you can see it there. The other option is if you joined us from Zoom, your web browser should have been redirected to the booking page. Lastly, for those of you that are a bit unsure as to what time will suit and you want to look at your diaries, I will send you a follow-up email with that link. So jump in now. They are limited. I've set aside guaranteed time, so get in there now and book one of those because I guarantee that it's the smallest commitment you can possibly make and still expect to get a realistic result. So, that's great, but I want to just end with this. Last time, I think this was probably a few months ago, last school holidays, in fact, it was exactly, I remember, I managed to get away to Hamilton Island for a few days with the family. It was a fantastic trip. I really, really had a ton of fun there and it was great to get away, albeit we landed back in Melbourne only to go into lockdown number 4, which has rolled into lockdown 5, 6, and we all know it ending with our earthquake later this morning. So it was a great trip. I was there. The girl you can see on screen is my eldest daughter, Isabella. She said to me one morning, Dad, I'd love to walk up to the top of that mountain over there and watch the sunrise. Obviously, I knew she wanted to do a TikTok, but I thought, what a great experience. I said, of course, let's do it tomorrow morning. So that night, I had a look at what time the sun was going to rise. To my surprise, it was 4:45 a.m., which, as you know, holidays are one of those times that you like to enjoy to sleep in. But I thought, you know what? It's going to be fun. She really wants to do it. Let's set the alarm and away we go. So what happened? It felt like no longer than about 10 or 15 minutes later. You know what it's like. It's easy with these things. They're constantly going off. What did I do? That big fat button that comes up there, snooze. I hit that and I rolled over. Went off again. I think, what is it, 7, 8, 9 minutes later, and I was about to hit the stop button, and I didn't. I hit snooze, and I went to do it again. But then I realized, you know what? She's really excited about this. Just get up, get out there and do it. So I woke her up. We ran to the top of the mountain. We made the sunrise. It was a fantastic experience. We had a ton of fun there. We got some great photos like you can see here. And she really, really enjoyed it. And I think it's one of those memories that's always going to be with her, you know, for the rest of her life. And definitely it's something that I remember. You know, those of you with kids will know they grow up so fast. So it was a great memory. But the reason for me telling you this story is how easy it was for me just to hit the snooze and then I was about to hit the stop button. You know, we've all done that. Apple make it so easy to do it on the phones. But, you know, that's really what everyone is doing in life. You know, how often have you said, no, I'm not going to get up this morning. No, I'm not going to do that. No, I'll do it later. And we all know that later equals never. So, you know, be like me and my daughter at that time. Get up, don't hit the snooze button, take those actions, move forward, because the people that actually get forward, they don't hit snooze, they don't defer things, are the ones that are going to get the results and the ones that are going to create those great memories. So, you know, I did it. I know how easy it would have been for me to have missed out on this opportunity, and I'm glad that I didn't. And I really, really want to make sure that none of you also look back in time and realize, you know what, I wish I had done that. So, with that in mind, if you haven't already booked one of those sessions, do it right now. They're still there. I know we can add value, and I'm not asking for a big time commitment, but I guarantee you'll leave one of these meetings with some value and some actionable insights that you can take. So thank you very much to all of you for joining us. It's been great. I know the guys really, really enjoyed sharing all of that value with you, and I look forward to seeing all of you again next week or next month or whenever it is that you can join us in question time again. Thank you very much.